A new ABC News Ipsos poll found that a majority of Americans approve of the latest Supreme Court ruling restricting affirmative action in college admissions. But the country is more divided on other high-profile rulings. And 53% of Americans now say justices rule mainly on the basis of their partisan political views, up about 10 points since last January. To break this all down for us, let's bring in ABC News legal contributor Kim Wehle and ABC News' Jay O'Brien. Kim, I'll start with you. That is a big number, 53%, as we said, up about 10 percentage points just since January. How damaging is that public perception for this Supreme Court?
Well, the United States Supreme Court basically gave itself the authority to construe the Constitution back in the 19th century, and it doesn't have any enforcement mechanism. So I think it runs the risk of sort of delegitimizing itself to the point where Americans just see it as another cynical political operation. And given Dobbs, where for the first time in American history, an established individual constitutional right was obliterated, and then you add the affirmative action rulings and the 303 creative case, which essentially said you have a free speech right to discriminate on the basis of LGBTQ status, as well as race, gender, national origin, religion. There aren't any limits in that. I think it's fair for Americans to say, listen, I thought we got to vote on this stuff. Why is it that the Supreme Court is doing this by fiat?
And Kim, as a legal scholar yourself, what are your thoughts? Are the justices of this court more driven by politics than their predecessors?
This really lost me was with the Texas SB 8 abortion law, where that was a turning point for me. If you recall, prior to Dobbs, Texas passed a 6-week abortion ban. And at that time, Roe versus Wade was still the law of the land, and it was a 24-week abortion limit, and the court let that unconstitutional law go into effect even under basic civil procedure, basic litigation standards. It let that go. And the fact that it didn't apply sort of, law school 101 to at least hold that law in abeyance until it got to Dobbs, that's when I said, listen, this court in some cases is not following the law, it's following something else. Now, that's not to say in all cases, it's just unfortunately in the most controversial cases, the ones that involved our culture wars, the stuff that people are really polarized and divided around, they're reaching for straws and aggrandizing their own power. And I think at the end of the day, it does damage not just to individuals who feel they have no right, they have no say in these big issues anymore, but also to the institution itself, which is so vital for the rule of law in America.
Of course. So, Jay, the president, we know, sharply criticizing a lot of these rulings, saying this is not a, quote, normal court, and that it's done more to unravel basic rights than any court in recent history. Is the White House prepared to take any action here now to reform the court? What might that look like?
Well, the president has been under pressure by some progressives in his party to expand the court or take other actions, as you said, to change the makeup of the Supreme Court. But the president, the White House, have been very reticent to do anything of that nature. The president, even getting a question last week, asked if he would move to expand the court. He said that that would harm the court going forward and even, quote, politicize it maybe forever. So again, the president not willing to go that far. But what we are seeing from Democrats is something that we've previously seen largely from Republicans, which is using the Supreme Court as an election year issue, something that Republicans did for decades, now seeing Democrats bringing up Dobbs, bringing up other recent decisions as they try to energize voters ahead of November 2024.
And, Jay, the Supreme Court also ruled that President Biden has some power over student loan debt, but not on that massive scale his initial plan had outlined. You and I have been talking about this over the past few days. How could he try to go around this ruling to grant borrowers some relief?
Well, as you know, the court's decision was that the president couldn't use what's called the HEROES Act, which is a law that was first passed in 2001, and it had to do with student loan borrowers who were impacted by terrorism. And then it gets expanded in 2003. It's used in 2020 by the Trump administration to essentially suspend student loan payments during the pandemic because it was a national emergency. The Supreme Court says President Biden doesn't have the power to cancel student debt under that law. So what we heard from the president last week is that he wants to use a different federal law now, the Higher Education Act, to try to do something similar and cancel student debt using that vehicle. The White House says that it believes it has the legal power to use the Higher Education Act, although this might be a slower process, which is why they began this process by trying to use the HEROES Act. But it's worth pointing out here, Alexis, that could face legal challenges. The White House says it's confident it can legally do this, but it was also confident it could use the HEROES Act to do this, and the Supreme Court told them that they couldn't. So this could be a long process. Even if they do get the legal ability to carry this through, it might not be until after the 2024 election, if then.
Exactly. I think the long and short of it is borrowers should not be holding their breath. Jay and Kim, thanks so much.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.